Welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. Elizabeth and I used to do comedy together in San Francisco back when we were 19.
But we lost touch.
Years later, we found each other and discovered
that I'd become a painter, a performer, a writer, a Pilates teacher, an animal lover, and a biologist.
Wait, I'm a painter, performer, writer, Pilates teacher, animal lover, and well, okay, I'm not a biologist, but we're
lost friends.
And we're both speculative fiction writers.
And my work has appeared in MetaStellar magazine.
MetaStellar, for those of you who don't know, is an online magazine that they publish science fiction, fantasy, and horror. There's a link below in the YouTube channel, and you can check it out, and please subscribe for books, stories, tips on writing, and more.
So today we are so excited to be back talking to performance scientist and research artist, 3T Vakil. And 3T, do you have Negra Laura there to show us, one of your pets?
I do. Negra Laura. Negra Laura. I'm going to say hi. I'm going to say hi.
Oh,
here she is.
Oh,
She's
Negra. Oh, she's
my
so
trusted. She's about 9 years old. She's like a black border collie. Very, very smart. We just love her.
Did you just find her? Did she wander in, or?
She was this tiny when we found her. Literally, somebody had just dumped her. She was obviously the runt of the litter or something, and she somehow or other we picked her up, and that was it. She's been the most amazing, smart dog. And after the hurricane, she's just become closer and closer to me. She really doesn't leave my side anymore. And she started coming with me in the car now, and we go to the post office. We hang out, you know, things we didn't used to do before the hurricane. Now she's with me constantly. It's really lovely. She's a great companion.
She is a sweetheart. I've met her in person. I know she likes to chase pine cones because I've thrown a lot. And she would always run, here, get me another pine cone. So 3T, today
Yes.
I like to call 3T the Jane Goodall of the rainforest. 3T does this huge reforestation project, and it's not just that she knows every species, she knows like every tree individually, because she's probably I mean, it's amazing, the knowledge and the intimate, it's like they're her personal friends, and she knows so much about them. She's just an incredible wealth of knowledge about the rainforest and reforesting. And so I want you to talk about that, because it's just such an incredible, incredible project.
And just before we get started, we just wanted to remind our viewers that you haven't gone to the wrong place, that we are here speaking to 3T because to write science fiction and fantasy and horror, you need science and you need to have your imagination sparked. So we like to interview artists and creative thinkers and writers from all over the world just to kind of get our minds fired up. So that's all.
So go ahead, fire up our minds.
Right. So I arrived at this project in the 1999, and the project was started in 1983, and 40,000 hardwood trees were planted on 300 acres of a 1,000-acre plot that was put together for this project. So 300 acres is dedicated to sustainable forestry and scientific research, and the rest of the land is left as a wilderness zone. It's very steep, inaccessible land. We have 3 major watersheds here. And honestly, I think the first thing that we're doing here is watershed protection. It's so important to keep trees on the land. This land was historically coffee and agricultural and grazing, and suffered a lot of erosion. And at the end of that, that comes down to silting up of the man-made lake, which is a reservoir about 40 minutes away from us here. So it's most important to keep trees on this land. And the trees that were planted are valuable hardwoods, mahogany, blue maho, grenadillo, alsubo, a whole host of native trees. Caribbean pine was also planted here on this land. And when I joined the project, it was about 15 years into the project's life. And we were looking at how did those 40,000 trees do? And that's really where I got my forest legs. We solicited the help of the Earthwatch Institute and took volunteers out for about 15 years, maybe 7 to 12 to 14 people out in the field for about a 10-day period, collecting data on trees, lizards, frogs, vines, birds, and over the years we continued and we did many, many surveys of all the species that are here in this forest. That was a big learning for me, to just get out into the forest and learn about trees. And I suppose I've become a bit obsessive about trees now, and I think I found my place on the planet where the body feels good, the mind feels good, everything feels good to me physically and mentally and emotionally in my body. So it wasn't long before I moved out here permanently, which was in 2005. I had been coming and spending 3 months here, 2 months back in Santa Fe, New Mexico with the founders, and I kept coming back and forth. I was here just after Hurricane George, so most of the place was in a state of disarray. And over my time here, we've kind of built a bunkhouse and several other structures to house volunteers in. So doing that kind of work has, of course, impacted my painting. And in the early days of being here, I was painting, and I realized that paint has a lovely quality when you live in the humid tropics. I used to go back to Santa Fe and find my paint tubes dry. And I'd come back here and I go, and my paint would all be nice and juicy. And I was painting a lot here. And I have been painting constantly whilst I've been here through all the work that we've been doing. It's my late night, early evening work. Every night I do at least half an hour, if not an hour or two, of drawing. And you can see that painting behind me, the one with the lizard. I don't usually draw specific things. It just so happens that this lizard did catch my eye. I took a photograph of him, and it was just the way he was looking. And I find that the lizards, the anoles of this zone, are fascinating creatures, and they are just as interested in us as we are in them. I find myself looking up and catching one of them, like looking at me just as I'm looking at him, or as interested. So this particular painting behind me is kind of one of the latest ones that I'm working on, but you can see the kind of, I've just put some of these paintings up behind me to just give you an idea. I use a lot of body work when I paint, and put that into there. Forestry wise, we have been harvesting our trees from year 2003, and milling and drying and selling the wood on the market, and all of these things. Working here at the project is about learning by doing. There is no training I've had in any of this, and my partner, who has been working with me over the many years, Andres Rua, has also learned everything that he does here, from felling, driving the tractor, moving wood, hauling wood out of the forest. We have learned all of these things by just doing them. And in fact, we started in the era before we had internet here. You know, we didn't have internet here in the years when I started this project. So now things are much easier when you can Google how to do something, or what is that, or whatever. Very different life, which is great. And now here we are in the rainforest, and we are able to Google stuff. So that's good. And here I am talking.
And may I just
to
say,
you guys from, yeah.
They learned by doing, but I mean, 3T's now a fellow of the Linnaean Society. I mean, and Andreas, I've seen him making electric guitars, which to me is like, I mean, you know, you do learn by doing, but the science and everything is at such an incredible incredible high caliber and all it's integrated with the way they live. And
Yeah.
it's
So,
just, yeah.
Elizabeth, for those of us like me and our viewers who don't know, what society is that? I don't know what that is.
Oh,
Go ahead.
it's,
Well,
well,
go ahead, Evie.
well, Carl Linnaeus is a guy that came up with scientific nomenclature. So the, species, genre, like Homo sapiens and stuff. So there's a society, Linnaean Society in London. It is London, right? Or it's England, London. It's the big botanical society and zoological society that has gone on for I don't know when. It's like saying she was appointed by, it's like saying she was recognized by God, kind of.
Well, I was very lucky to get nominated as a fellow, and it does, I have been to visit the library when I've been in London, and what an incredible resource that is. Everybody who's ever pressed plants, written a book about a plant or plants, everything is in there, and it's such a resource. It's also just, so lovely to have a little bit of recognition for the things that we do, and it just puts you into a community of people who are interested in plants and plant life around the world. So it's given a lot of forums, publications, things that I wouldn't normally be access to. I was very lucky to meet Ian Prance, who was one of the directors of Kew Gardens many moons ago. But one of the most long-standing directors of Kew Gardens, and I organized a climate change conference, and he came to be our keynote speaker for it, which was great. And then he got to meet a few of our friends here. He also nominated a friend of ours, Christian Torres, as a fellow of the Linnaean Society. So it's an honor. It's a real honor to be able to be part of a society that works with plants around the world, and historically has that whole aura about it. Yeah. So let me just go a bit more into the forestry part of it, because here we are growing trees for the future and harvesting trees of our own, which are only now at this stage in 2021, they are nearly 40 years old. When we started, they were like 15 years old now. And then Hurricane Maria hit, which was just beyond anything that I could have imagined I would ever experience up here on the mountain. And to walk out after the hurricane and see the devastation, I knew that my body and my mind, my whole emotional world, just went into trauma. I think everybody on the island suffered trauma after Hurricane Maria, and the biggest part of that was the loss of our vegetation, trees in general. So out there in the streets, huge mahogany trees had fallen, and all kinds of other big trees, street trees in the main, trees that were like 80 to 90 years old, 5 foot in diameter, things like that fell. And the government response was to crush and destroy. That was, there was no natural resource management in place to take care of fallen, valuable wood. And that's something that Andres and we had set up a company called Puerto Rico Hardwoods in 2015 to sell the wood from the project here. But suddenly we were now faced with thousands of trees on the ground outside of our project, in the streets of San Juan, in all of the major cities, everywhere on the island. Nobody escaped. No place on the island escaped that kind of damage. So we went into overdrive, and since the hurricane, after the hurricane, we have also been salvaging all the valuable hardwoods that we could, and are selling them now. And we've really created, at least I hope, a bit more value for wood on an island where there hasn't ever really been a wood industry. The Spaniards came here, took wood away, then the Americans came and took wood away. And there's never actually been a wood industry. There have been people using wood to make houses and furniture and things like that, but never on the kind of scale where, you know, many people can be employed. Right now, we have about 5 people employed. And so we're, you know, through this whole COVID era, we've survived, and we continue to sell, work with, make furniture, and sell the wood from Hurricane Maria, which is an ongoing task. And shall I carry on?
I was just going to say, though, you sent us a couple of amazing videos that I think we will have embedded underneath this chat so that people can look. You sent us that harrowing Maria video of you in there while it was happening. And then the other video about your project, which are also amazing to look at, just what you're doing. And then at some point, I would love to know how, after seeing what it looked like, the devastation, what it looks like now, how it's going. So at some point.
Yeah. So one of the most amazing things to me is how it would be so easy after a hurricane to just, you know, cut down the trees that are broken. And I am so glad that we did not have the resources to do that. And it's a real eye-opener in terms of management of a forest, to be patient. Just like humans need time to come back. It's taken me nearly 4 years to be a little bit more, or rather, shall I say, less traumatized by what happened. And the trees have actually come back to life. And I have to say that the mahogany trees are an amazing survivor of this type of devastation. I have trees literally outside my window that I was absolutely certain, oh, those will be nice once we cut them down. They'll make a column somewhere in a house or something like that. And those trees are not dead. And it's not like they are in poor shape or anything. They have put out new shoots, and they are not going anywhere soon. They are fully alive, and it's an amazing thing to see. Trees that lost all of their branches, and some of the trees that actually just got broken in half, they're not dead, you know, and you get that sense of, and we know this from all the latest work on trees and how trees make communication in their roots, but there is a survival mode going on. Yeah, there are a lot of dead trees, trees that literally had their barks broken off them. Some trees that had their barks broken off, they're now back on, and they're healed with a whole kind of new skin on them. It's an incredible thing to see trees coming back to life. And this is like 3 years on. Last year, I was saying the same thing. This year, I'm saying the same thing again for other trees that have seemingly come back to life. They were never dead, but we could have cut them down and lost, 20 years, 25, 27 years worth of growth, thinking that they were dead, and they're not. So this is a huge learning for me that, patience, patience with humans, patience with trees, things will come back when conditions are optimal again. Nothing goes away really, So
did you though have trees that you thought were actually, like, for 3 years you thought they were dead and then they came back? Wow. I mean, I wonder how like certain trees, like if they seem dead for 5 years and suddenly you see it.
No, that's been one of the biggest eye openers for me. There's one tree outside here again that literally the bark split and opened up around the tree. You could see the inside of the tree around the bark. So once you take the bark off a tree, at least I thought this was true, the tree should die. But it wasn't completely removed. It was literally like it burst off the tree, and there was one big kind of slice open. So I just assumed that that tree would slowly die. Well, it didn't. And now there's a big kind of growth over the split all the way up the tree. And the tree is in great shape, you know. And imagine that we would have cut it down. Maybe it was 25 years old or so at the time. And now it's going to carry on growing, and it's doing really well. It's absolutely miraculous watching the survival of a forest. And again, you know, forests are resilient. It's all of us humans with our human things that are broken and damaged and water sodden or whatever. But this is a natural, in a sense, it's a natural event. And it's interesting to really take that on board after the shock has receded, to see that, you know, everything that fell on the floor is providing food, you know, nutrients in the ground, and the spaces open up the spaces for new trees to take. It's an amazing thing living in a forest and seeing all of this.
Yeah, one thing I've been reading a lot about is people saying when trees fall, dead trees are really necessary for a lot of creatures too. So that's really important. Yeah. But even when I was last visited you, which was before the hurricane, I know you were finding, like, when they'd planted mahogany in places and the roots would break up the street, so they cut down these huge mahogany trees and they were just dumping the wood. Yeah. And I know you started a program then to use that, reclaim it.
Yeah. And it's amazing, really, that people could even, you know, people do know that mahogany. I can't say that everybody knows that mahogany is a valuable wood. People that use wood know it is, but it's having the means to be able to deal with the trunk. Once you know, not what are you going to use to move a trunk with? You need machinery, you need equipment. Then you're going to take it somewhere, and wherever you take it to, you're still going to need machinery and equipment and whatever it takes to move heavy pieces of wood. So people don't have that. It's easy to say, oh, people don't care, whatever, but it takes a lot to have that. So over the years, this project has built up the capacity to be able to deal with heavy logs, and the knowledge about, you know, which types of wood are worth taking, how to store the wood, how to mill it, all of these things. So we're located in a good place in time for Hurricane Maria to be able to take advantage of literally the gold on the ground. You know, this is and it's a shame that there was no defined leadership at that time to say, no, don't destroy valuable hardwoods. This is an industry waiting to happen on an island that was like, is still in debt, is being run by a fiscal board, all these things. Puerto Rico is under such pressure economically, but to literally just dump in landfill, not even for compost, was beyond me, you know. And, you know, I have lived in Europe where every single, you know, every bank is made of mahogany. In Spain, in Italy, every church that you go to, every museum that you go to, anywhere that you go that people have museums, whatever, what are they built from? Mahogany from the Caribbean. People used to die to get their hands on mahogany. And when I first arrived here at this project, I didn't have a very good impression of mahogany because mostly I'd grown up with fake mahogany. Because as mahogany became more and more valuable, of course, it became more and more scarce, and people started using cheaper woods. And so most of what I grew up with around me in England and other places was not mahogany. So I never really, unless I'd gone to a museum or somewhere where they actually did use mahogany, mostly people are not surrounded by mahogany anymore. It's cheaper woods, red colored woods, tinted woods with dyes and things like that. So people don't get to actually experience the touch, the feel, the quality of real mahogany. So when I started to see from our own trees and trees that fell in the early days here, that we got a little glimpse of our own mahogany. And then after Hurricane Maria, we got to see large slabs of mahogany and the absolute beauty And not only that, the longevity of mahogany. That's why people love it. It lasts for a long time and nobody wants to eat it. Little bugs don't want to eat it. And it polishes beautifully, it carves beautifully. And we have a lot of it. We live in the zone in the world where mahogany grows really well. So, one of my through lines is to, keep putting this info out there so that the next, disturbance that we have, which is hurricanes in this belt of the world, that we will use our resources more wisely.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was amazing because they're throwing out all this mahogany. It's so hard to rescue it when here, people are like, oh, wood is so expensive, and you're not talking that kind of wood. You're not talking mahogany. You're just talking, pine.
Exactly. Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you so much. So we always end saying the best thing we learned this week. Okay, I always go first, so I'm going to go first this time. So I'm going to paint a museum in a science museum in Ventura.
Ooh.
And I'm really excited about it. And so this is the idea I have. It's this big old barn, and what I want to do is paint like the barn has big cracks into it. And through these cracks, you can see into different biomes. You can see like into the ocean or into space or into a forest. So it looks like the museum is like cracks into different biomes and dimensions. And I've also got some Dago paint that I've been experimenting with. I'm not sure how well it'll work, but I want to try it for the galaxies and also luminescent sea creatures and forest creatures.
Yay.
Oh, cool. And I'm gonna like ride your coattails because I'm gonna join you because it's close enough for me to come visit and hang out with my friend, my long lost friend, and paint. And even, I mean, Elizabeth is an amazing painter and she has skills that I cannot touch. So I'm gonna learn a few new things from her.
Thank you. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
And 3T?
I've just come back from 2 weeks away, and I have yet to really go into my nursery and look at the seedlings that have arisen. And there are 2 seedlings from a very endangered tree on our land that popped up whilst I was away. My friend who was taking care of the nursery sent me photos. I want to go in and look at them and keep watching them. I'm so excited by the new work that we're doing with endangered endemic trees. We're propagating them in our nursery. So every day I've got something new popping up. I'm really lucky that I get to grow trees. I feel really blessed.
Well, we're really lucky that we get to talk to you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and so always just like, I don't know, soul enriching. It's like, yes, this is happening. This too is happening in the world. It's not just bad things. Remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we want to thank Maria and Alex Korolov for producing and editing and helping us put the whole show together because we couldn't do it without you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching. And if you want to catch up with the rest of our shows, be sure that you subscribe to the channel and like our show if you liked this show with 3T like we did. We had a great time. Thank you, 3T.
Thank you so much. And thank you for remembering all the stuff I forgot, Andrea.
All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.